Well,
that's a deep subject. Well,
Big Mama does not have anyone take her up on her sex and tacos in her
that
basement.
we know of.
That we know
or
of.
that would admit it.
So she starts getting very, very involved in the personal lives of several people at the church. Also, during this time, Froggy is trying to figure himself out. So, as we end chapter 3 and we bring 2016 to a close in our timeline, there was a lot of stuff that got packed into the last few months of 2016.
Yeah.
So,
we got to go out with a bang.
Faith can feel like hearts and butterflies until someone lights a match and burns it all to the ground. Welcome to the Burning Butterflies podcast.
The sad thing is that there's abuse of every kind within the church. But the spiritual abuse is the stuff that just
It's a place there shouldn't be abuse. Like, there just shouldn't be abuse in a place that claims Jesus.
Well, it ruins your soul. If you're new here, we suggest listening to our prologue episode first. This is the story of two women's journey through toxic church culture and spiritual abuse, all while finding healing in the end.
Sometimes it's just the facts, and if you get offended by it, that's a you issue. And if we can't be mature enough to have these conversations, even if some of the topics are difficult, then shame on us.
So before we get into today's episode, we do want to take just a second and talk about what today's Patreon episode is about.
Well, we mentioned on a previous episode that we had been reached out to by one of the characters. These are real people, though.
I know, it's so weird to call them characters because they're like actual people.
Right.
And this was our life.
Right. I know. But honestly, though, in talking with people who also, podcast or people who've been in these experiences, you really I think the fact that we chose to do it this way, to make it, just to protect the identity of everybody and give everybody other names and do stuff like that, it helps in the healing process. Because we are able to step back out of it and understand and separate from it to where we've been able to heal behind the scenes and still show up and tell the story and give it authenticity because of that disconnect. And so I think it's a healthy disconnect. But anyway, the big reveal, it was the children's ministry director.
Yes.
Who wanted to meet, so we had dinner, and she's mad at us.
And what she's mad at us for is so funny. She's mad because we didn't give her an actual name. We called her the children's ministry director.
You just called me children's ministry director. And I'm like, sorry. It was a development flaw. We had not planned ahead enough to realize the part of the story that it was going to involve. And by the time we got around there, it was we've already established that that's who you were. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it went really well. We are going to dive into more specifics on that over on our Patreon, because we've kind of been wrestling with this idea of what is forgiveness, what is reconciliation over these past few episodes. And I think what happened at that dinner was what true forgiveness and reconciliation looks like. We all walked in there and none of us needed to hear an apology from one another, and we didn't need to hear explanations. We all walked in there and we we all have done healing, we've all done therapy, and we all acknowledge that it was just a crappy situation.
Right.
And it was the system that put us in those instances. And so we can't hold what we did to each other against each other, because we all did it to each
Right.
other.
Yeah.
And so if I'm going to be mad at her for something, then she has just as much right to be mad at me. And what came out of it was we all decided we've healed enough and we're adult enough that we're ready to just move on from that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take away from the fact that it happened. And it doesn't take away from the fact that in the moment it hurt, because at that dinner we laughed, we cried, we
laughed some more.
We hashed we hashed stuff out. And what came out of it was just this understanding that yeah, that sucked, but I know deep down that wasn't you. And so I thought it was really good. So head over to our Patreon. That is the episode that's going to go along with this episode. I've had some questions from some listeners about what Patreon is. So we say that we are a listener-supported podcast. You hear the little blurb at the end of every episode. Basically, what Patreon is a way for you to help contribute financially to our podcast. And so you can give as little as $2 a month, as much as $10 a month. And as a thank you for helping us keep this podcast going, because at the end of the day, we're just two ladies who have to have a day job and are trying to, make it through life and pay our bills and do all the things. This podcast does cost money. And so by helping us alleviate some of that cost for us, we put out bonus content. And there's other things that, as time moves on, we're gonna work on adding into the Patreon. But yeah, you get a bonus episode for every episode that we put out. So every single week. And those bonus episodes come out before the actual episode. So those go live at 4:00 and then on Thursdays, and then the regular episodes go out at 6:30. So head over there. If you have any questions, there's a link in the show notes for our Patreon, as well as on all of our social media channels. There's links there too, that you can find us. And we appreciate the support, and we appreciate people who are looking at what we're doing and saying, you know what, I not only appreciate what you're doing, I not only agree with what you're doing, but I want to be a small part of it. So we thank everyone who is a supporter. All right, so now that shameless plug is over, let's get into today's episode.
We've just ended the season of marriage ministry. That is no longer we came, we saw, we did not conquer.
Well, and when you look at it, we spend all of 2016 focusing on marriage, and we get to October and no one cares at all anymore.
And I think it's important to mention 3 out of the 4 couples no longer go to the church at this point or soon thereafter, and only one of those is not because of re-engage. 2 of the couples, the can of worms we opened in re-engage led them to leaving the church. And then the other couple, which is Mr. and Mrs. Vanilla, they stayed as long as the pastor thing worked out, and it was really the pastor thing that ended their time at the church. And then Froggy and I were the 4th couple, and of course we stayed. Right?
Yeah, but honestly, I don't think the Vanillas stayed
much longer.
Long after. Yeah, if they made it, I think they made it into, maybe the first couple months of 2017, but then they were out. And so really, I mean, they were at the church for 2 years.
Yeah.
And so in 2 years, he is made a pastor. He leads a ministry. It falls apart and he leaves. But also during this time, we ordain Pastor Younggun. So this is an important thing to note, because Pastor Younggun takes his job as a pastor very seriously. He takes this calling on his life very seriously. And
I mean, as he should.
he oh yeah, 100% as he should.
I mean, you went to seminary.
No, I'm not saying that in a
No,
disparaging way.
I
No.
just I know I didn't take it that way, but I'm like, but for real, he is a pastor, and that is what he does. He's a good
So when
one.
we licensed him a year before in 2015, he starts serving as a pastor, but he is still very much subservient to what Tom wants. Now we've ordained him. So from here on out, he has been serving. He has been doing what Tom wants him to do, but he has not really pushed that boundary of like, hey, this is not right, or hey, this is not okay. He has said things to people very close to him, but he has not really exerted any sort of authority as like, I'm a pastor here too,
Yeah,
damn it.
yeah.
But all that changes when we ordain him. He sat there, and when Tom read over him the expectations of being a pastor and asked him if are you willing to lay your life down for this flock? Are you willing, what it looks like biblically to be a shepherd? He took this so seriously. He made a deep commitment to this church and to its people. And he genuinely loves these people and wants what is best for this church. And so that is something important to note during this time. He doesn't start right away, but he does kind of start doing things without really talking to Tom. So the children's ministry leader leaves. She starts her job at the private Christian school. She leaves the church. There's no one to lead children's. He takes over children's ministry, but very quickly he gives children's ministry to Brandy and I. So Brandy is running the little kids side, so kindergarten and under, and I'm running the big kids side, 1st through 5th grade. He is leading youth group, and he brings on other people underneath him to help him with youth group. He really pushes, and he starts this idea of a family ministry, a ministry that is there that takes all these little pieces, because we've talked about everyone is functioning on an island. Everyone's out on their own. He wants to bring everyone together. So yes, you have children's ministry. Yes, you have youth. You have adult ministries. You have Bible studies, men's groups, women's groups. We have a group for retired people or older people. We have all of these different groups. He really wants to bring them together in ways that they function as one body. And so what he ends up calling that is the family ministry. So as he's building that foundation of that family ministry at the end of 2016, he's putting people in place into these strategic roles, right? And so I start coming into the office. I am leading the big kids side of children's. Brandy's leading the little kids side, but also the three of us together are leading this family ministry and this idea that we're finally going to function as an entire body all together. So we have that coupled with now mom's group. We've already started, we're not just meeting, hanging out. Mom's group is you're coming and you're doing a Bible study, right? And so we start with family ministry. We start bringing in other people into this Bible study. Big Mama from our last episode, she is coming. So she even starts bringing some people from her re-engage group that she continued on in her home. And so you have this merge of OG Moms Group people and Big Mama Moms Group people, and we're all coming together for these Bible studies. And we're also doing things as full families, because we don't, as this idea of family ministry, we don't just want like the moms to get together with the kids. We want the dads to be able to connect with each other and stuff. So we start doing these family ministry get-togethers, right? And we want something that can be incorporated across the board. And so it is brought up that, do your kids believe in Santa? Is a topic of mom's group. And everyone is like, yes, but how do we explain Santa in a biblical way? And my husband has, this is going to sound so funny. He has always dreamed of being Santa. So like, he would love nothing more than to like dress up as Santa and like, make this little kid's dreams come true of like having this kid tell Santa what they want for Christmas, right? And he has done this before where he's like dressed up and like he works at a hospital, so he's gone and like visited kids that are in the hospital dressed as Santa, and like the hospital even made him an ID badge that says Santa. And so he would just go put on his Santa suit and he would go in and these kids are in the hospital around Christmas time and he would bring them a little something, right? And so the idea is that my husband is going to come to church as Santa and come into children's ministry and tell the story of how Saint Nicholas came to be and talk about why we have Christmas. Jesus is the reason for the season, and kind of bridge that gap. So here's something that is kind of a hot button topic in Christian circles of, do you believe in Santa? Do you do the Easter Bunny? Do you celebrate, is it pagan and all of this kind of stuff? Like there's kind of, there's a bunch of different trains of thought. But when the question was asked in the main group that was very active in the church, these women are serving, and they're kind of the main group of moms at the church. Yes, all of their kids believe in Santa. So it was formulated under good intentions. Charlotte finds out that we are going to have Santa come the Sunday before Christmas and talk to the children's ministry kids about Jesus and the birth of Jesus. And she says absolutely not. She goes as far as telling my husband for the entire month of December, he is not allowed to wear red.
Oh my gosh.
To church. He cannot just like, for the last few years around Christmas time, he would just wear his Santa hat. And like, he does this, like, at Christmas, we'll be shopping for our kids, right? And we'll be like in a store at Christmas and he wears his Santa hat and little kids will look at him like, is that really Santa? And he just kind of like smiles and winks at them and just keeps walking. And like, you could tell these little kids are like, oh my God, I just saw Santa at Target. Like, and they love it. And it just like that, my husband loves doing stuff like that. He just loves like bringing joy to little kids. Right. And so he has done that for years, like just worn his Santa hat around Christmas time. And Charlotte is like, you can't wear your Santa hat. You can't even wear the color red. I don't even want you coming to church in a red shirt. This makes my husband so mad. Like, my husband does not get worked up over very much. Like, he's a pretty, like, just kind of like, okay, whatever, go with the flow kind of guy. Like, this made him mad. And so Big Mama gets a hold of this and she decides that is not acceptable. These kids deserve to hear from Santa about Jesus. And so she sets up this thing. We all of like the family ministry moms group people, we're going to have a big family get together at the beginning of December. and we are going to go to this couple's house. The kids are going to play. We're all going to have dinner. Like we're doing like a potluck dinner, right? We're going to watch a movie. And this idea is that my husband is going to leave, go get on his Santa suit. And then we had bought like just little, like the boxes of candy that you could get for like $1, like they're kind of like old school, like movie theater style boxes of candy. Bought a bunch of those for the kids and just like little like things from like the dollar store. And he put them in his sack, and he came in and he was going to give the presents to the kids and all of this. So that is what we thought we were going to.
Oh no. Oh no. No, what happened?
We show up, and it is also a surprise birthday party for
Oh
me.
my goodness gracious.
Because Big Mama is invested in our lives, right? Like she is invested. And when she found out that the church has never thrown you a birthday party, you do so much. How come they've never thrown you a birthday party? And it's like, well, we don't celebrate people and, all the Kool-Aid drinking things I say. She thinks that is unacceptable. So I get a surprise birthday party.
Oh my goodness gracious.
So that my husband dresses up like Santa and still comes and brings stuff to the little, like the whole thing is just kind of like, what the hell
like
is happening?
bless her for that. Like, just like honestly, like I don't even mean that like tongue in cheek, but I mean, like as crazy as it is, like good for her, like to like go against, like she was definitely anti-Team Tom, and good for her. Like we're having Santa and you're getting a birthday. Like I love that. I do. I love that.
Yeah, but it also wasn't like we're gonna give you a birthday that you would want.
Not at all. Like it was totally not okay. But it's awesome that she was.
So,
she didn't protest in the way you or I would protest, but I'm so glad she did.
Yeah. So I get a gift basket that I find out later was a giant fight because she goes to mom's group because we've merged our mom's group. There's tension anyway, right? And she pretty much tells everyone they have to bring something to put into this gift basket for me as a birthday present. There's some people who don't want to do that. She's mad. She's like upset with people because they're either not giving her money to buy stuff or they're not bringing stuff. And so I get like this really ugly blanket, and I get coloring books, which I'm like, I mean, they were like the intricate pattern, like, the adult coloring books, but like, I'm not just going to sit there and color, like, and so then I got all of these like fancy coloring markers and all of this stuff that I really wouldn't use. And the thing, Brandy has brought it up in an episode in the past of this coffee mug that says, "Give me coffee and tell me I'm pretty." And that is so not my personality. Like, I love coffee. Like, yes, please give me coffee. But honestly, I don't want you to I want to make my coffee because you're not going to put the right amount of creamer in it and it's not going to taste right. So like, don't make my I'll make my coffee, and I don't need you to tell me I'm pretty. Like, like that's like, not
none
my
of that
personality.
Screams, this is my vibe.
Yes. But it's all what she wants.
I've seen the coffee cup.
She lives in this, like, her husband was her Prince Charming. He came and he saved her. Like, she was this, this divorced woman with 3 children, and he came in and loved her anyway and built her this house and, put insulation in the sex room and, all the things that she wanted him to do. He did all of those things for her, and he brings her coffee every morning and tells her she's pretty. That's great for you. Like, love that for you. I don't need that. I don't need that type of validation from my husband. But so this is the most awkward birthday party you've ever been to in your whole life, because half the people are mad that it's a birthday
because
party.
they're there for the like trick or treat street but Christmas version. I don't even know. Like,
Yeah,
they're there
they're
to meet Santa
so
and get candy.
Santa can share the gospel with their kids and give them candy. And
They were duped. They came to
like-
your birthday party thinking that
and they're already pissed off because they didn't put anything in my gift
Yeah.
basket. And so then they've already gotten their ass chewed by Big Mama for that. And there's people there, they don't like each other, but they're there because they feel obligated to be there. And Pastor Young Gun comes because this is amazing. It's family ministry. And it's awful. Like, quite honestly, it is awful. That is how I end 2016. But you are not part of family ministry. No. You're not invited. So what were you and Froggy doing?
First of all,
at the end of 2016?
This is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. So, yeah. So, funny story. Like, just a total, like, not a side note, but on the level of, like, the Santa story. So Charlotte's parents, they live about 2 hours south, right, of where we're at. And Charlotte's dad is a pastor of a church down there. And they had been in talks about moving up this way. And he was like retiring from his pastoral service down there. But before that happened, there was like this whole process of just like all the stuff that needed to be like gone through, or, you know, like because Charlotte's mom is a collector of things, you know, and like
some might say a hoarder,
maybe, but a very neat one. Like not to like, it's weird because for somebody who like when you say hoarder, you know, you think of like the people that have like a little tiny 6-inch pathway through their entire house, and like, or maybe you live in one room because the rest it's like loaded with stuff. They are not like that. Like very clean, very organized, stuff very stashed away. Like the amount of stuff is amazing to me because you don't know it. Like from the outside, look, you would never know. She does have like her personal collection of things that is kept out, and they've traveled all over the world, so they have a lot of stuff like that. But no, like it's a constant flow of stuff. So it's not necessarily like stuff that stays with her. It's constantly like, oh, somebody needs it. I have it. Let me clear this shelf out of my closet and give it to you. And so it's a constant flow of things that need to find their. So I guess it's more like a keeper of lost things and then finds them homes, right? Because it's like, because there is no like, it's not, there's some things that like, but I mean, like, you think about Brandy telling the story that she had all of like the children's ministry stuff from this other church, like in her basement. So how many other people had stashes of things that she would be like, oh, you have the coloring books. We have to go get them because this person needs coloring books. Like,
well, and this woman was also like, I have watched her like take stuff out of the trash and reuse it, like clean it off, and like, I mean, like a plastic tablecloth, and like, oh, it's still good. Here, I'm gonna wash it off in the sink, and we'll just keep it.
Which I get like the generational things of like, there's people who've lived through the Depression or were like young kids during the Depression and like watch their parents have to scrimp and say, like, I get that.
Yeah,
I get that.
Like my granny used to like clean tinfoil and
like there's definitely like I would say probably around my generation of this like disposableness of life where we just don't keep toasters for 30 years. Like I just, you know, we don't live in that type of society anymore. So yes, it seems odd to us, but I know some of it is not necessarily as odd. But this woman took it to a level of like, she definitely was like a keeper of things and of moving things around. And so anyway, at this point in time, on one of these adventures where either Charlotte's mom brought up a haul of stuff or Charlotte went to go get a haul of stuff from her mom's house, she ends up with stuff, right? And you do have to really think like garage sale stuff, but it's garage sale with no price tags, right? So, you know, thrift store, no price tags, like flea market style, a collection of things. And in this haul of stuff is this ginormous Santa head. Okay. And this Santa head has this huge, heavy red velvet cape that drapes down from the Santa head. And this Santa head's purpose is to go on top of your Christmas tree. And so your tree becomes the body of Santa. Like, it's a big Santa head with a big red velvet cape that wraps around your tree. Okay. I think that this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I have to have it. And I was very taken back that Charlotte was more than happy to allow me to have this Santa head, because she was like, yeah, you can have it. Like, that was odd. Like, that was odd. Like, the fact that I was like, oh, I love it. I have to have it. And I'm so excited about it. And she was like, yes, you can have it. Like, it was wrong that I wanted it. Apparently, I could tell that, like, it was a very awkward interaction of like, I was so excited about Santa Head. She was so not excited about Santa Head. But it was okay that she gave it to me. And so while your husband was being told he couldn't be Santa or even wear red and don't dare wear your hat at church, my Christmas tree was adorned with this gaudy Santa head and big red velvet cape. And I gotta tell you, the cape was the best part, not necessarily the Santa head, but I loved it so much. Like, I took pictures of it. I showed it to everybody. I was like, you have to see my Christmas tree. It's the most amazing thing ever. And that's where the Santa head came from. So there was that. And so my 2016, oh, goodness gracious. There's what really happened, and then there's what we thought was happening, and then what we found out later was really happening, and there's just so many things. So we started the year in the beginning of the year with Froggy getting fired. So then he went to work with Twyla's husband for the good part of the year. And that didn't work out by the end of the year because, Froggy's falling apart, and we can't hold a job, and we can't figure out. We just went through. God, we can't hold a job. Our marriage is being exposed. Like, they were just in this teetering of sanity and insanity constantly, and so Froggy gets a job at a local business on the other side of the interstate from us. And it's interesting because he had been applying for work at places, so it wasn't necessarily odd at the time. Like, I'm trying to go back into the, like, this is the time frame. Like, you have to get a job. And so, of course, he's applying for jobs. But all of a sudden, he's mentioning friends and these are people that he has known for years or years ago, right? Like, all of us, like, this is odd because Froggy doesn't have any friends. And the one friend he does have, he worked for. Like, I know that person. But other than that, this is not a social person. Like, Froggy doesn't socialize. He doesn't go out. He doesn't get together with a group of friends. He doesn't go out. Like, the whole, like, the beer ministry thing, like, he wouldn't have done that anyway. Like, he has no social life. So we've been married now for 4 or 5 years. We're going on 5 years, and he has no circle of friends, no social life. We don't go do things. He's not getting together with the guys. There's no guys' night. Like, this does not exist in his world. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh yeah, my buddy so-and-so said I should go apply at this place. And I at the time, I didn't really think anything of it because it's like,
Well, because that's like a normal thing for people to say, like,
It
oh,
is
like my
normal. And I
buddy or my
didn't
friend.
realize then how unnormal it was.
Yeah, how like you don't have
Yeah, like
friends.
it was like that's what's because like he would talk about people sometimes, but they were always people in his past, like my buddy so and so, but it wasn't somebody who was ever currently in his life. Like that. So just like looking back on it, it's that should have been a I should have known. But at the time it would just be like, oh yeah, like I got a hold of like the way I thought it was like, oh, I reached out to this guy I used to know because he's worked at this company for, 10 years and I want to see. So I'm calling in, oh, I know somebody there. Maybe I can get a job.
Yeah, like calling in
Yeah.
a favor.
And so that would be how I spun it in my mind. And because that's how like even now, like if I was, I don't know. Like if I was looking for a job, like right now, I would be like, oh, who do I know? Oh, I wonder if they still work there. I could call them and see if they're hiring. Like that's a good way networking, right? And so it didn't at the time seem very odd. But like looking back, I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. Like, how come now all of a sudden out of the woodwork are these people that you're quote unquote friends with and you're going to get a job? So he ends up getting a job at this one place, like I said, across the interstate from where we live. And it seems like it's going to be a really, really good thing. It's like a steady, solid job. It's not with somebody in the church, which also probably should have been a red flag.
Which, well, but I mean, like I
seriously,
just thinking, like trying to put like, if I was you, I probably would think like, oh, maybe this will go well because like then your dad isn't a part of it. It has nothing to do with the church. It has nothing to do with anything. Like this could be something really positive because your dad didn't get you a job. You got
and it's like at a legitimate business. This isn't just working, and not that I don't want to say that these other businesses weren't legitimate. Like they are. They have legitimate businesses, but like on the level of like Froggy taking it legitimately. Like this isn't a hand-me-out favor where you don't value or respect it. Like this is a legit job.
Yeah. And that's how Tom talked about a lot of people in those positions in the church, was that like, oh, they have this cute little store that they do this at, or they do this. And he never took anyone's positions seriously. And it was all looked at under the guise of like, well, oh, you do that, so this is how it can benefit the church. You do that, so that's how.
And I feel like sometimes it would come across as like not valuing business owners, where it was like, what, you can't do anything else, so you have to own your own business. Like that wasn't a mark of success. Like he didn't put value on that. Like business owners are amazing and they're doing great things. And look at what business owners are like. There was no value placed on what somebody was doing and offering as a business owner. Yeah. Other than unless, oh, who has their own business, that means that they can help. Like he had no value for it. It was just people he could use. Yeah. That's crazy. So anyway.
Exactly.
So yeah, Froggy ends up getting this job, and we are in a brief moment in our cycle of everything's gonna be okay. We made it through, re-engage, and I have my job at the private school, which, let me remind you, I was making maybe $30 twice a month or once a month. I guess I got paid once a month. I made like $30. I don't even know. But we're doing the Christian school thing with the little kids, and so I'm in my place being kept in my box. Froggy has a legitimate job, finally. The family is like, Froggy's family is like uniting, and Froggy's brother has, for Christmas, he has gifted the entire family a vacation to a cabin in Grand Lake, and we're going to go and have a family vacation Tom, Charlotte, all the siblings and their spouses. And this is what the youngest sibling, this was the gift to the family, because like the family couldn't get together for Christmas all together this year. So instead, in January, we're going to be going on this family vacation to this cabin, this winter wonderland cabin that Froggy's brother,
because the last time you went on a family vacation, it went so well for you and Froggy.
Yeah, all of them.
When you went
well,
back
because
east.
I mean, because they would go like regular. Like, this was regular. Like every year there was like an annual. There was some trip. It was either like the Thanksgiving trip to visit for Froggy's family reunion. Like his family always had a family reunion on Tom's side of the family every Thanksgiving. And then if that wasn't going on, we started doing their friends from like middle school had a lake house. And so then in August for Tom and Charlotte's like wedding anniversary, we would go to the lake house. So it was like there was always some annual Mecca trip, family get together, something. And like this year, I just remember there was like distance in the family. And so we were going to be unified. But I feel like this is a whole nother dynamic. But like this was baby brother's, I've made it. I'm treating I'm paying for this. I'm treating the entire family.
Yeah. I could see how Froggy would see this as a big FU from his little brother.
I mean, like the dynamic there of like sibling rivalry and, you know, the younger brother being the favorite, you know, because, and then being the most successful, you know, in the American dream sense, and sister's the most successful in the Jesus sense. So, and Froggy's the black sheep troublemaker of the, I mean, like the dynamic is like, you could imagine if you just have like, so we end the year.
Well, and you almost like expect him to be a middle child.
Not the oldest,
like the way
but
he acts, not the oldest.
Yeah, it's so crazy. So we end the year in the calm before the storm of it's all going to be okay. It's going to be great. Everything's going to be okay. Burning Butterflies is a listener-supported podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by our amazing supporters on Patreon.
Follow the link in our show notes to learn how you can become a Patreon supporter too. Supporters get exclusive access to bonus content each month, including outtakes, cut content, and supporter-only episodes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating on your listening platform.
Burning Butterflies is a production of Asha Media. Thank you for listening.